Hi everyone, thanks for coming. And Michaela and I are very excited to have all of you here and all of our wonderful speakers and coming out on the first weekend of Coachella, so thank you very much for that. But I am very excited to have Peter up here first to start out the conference and talk a little bit about Hudson and get to know Peter. And one of the reasons when we were putting together the schedule and thinking of speakers that we wanted to have at the conference, Peter came up immediately, and Peter and I have met each other a couple years ago, and what started out as a 5-minute conversation led into an hour conversation, which led into a 4-hour meeting at his office. So once you start talking with him, it's hard to stop the conversation. So we definitely wanted to have Peter here and talk about his brand and how he built the lifestyle brand that Hudson Jeans is. And it's very similar to social media as far as building the relationships, and there's a lot of correlations, so that's why we wanted to have you here. So why don't we just go ahead and give us a little bit of a background about you and Hudson Jeans, and we can kind of go from there.
Well, thank you for having me here. It's a real honor and pleasure, and thank you guys for the time and coming and checking this out. So you want me to start with my history
why don't you start
here?
with your history? And
So my history is it's kind of like a classic immigrant story. My family came in from Korea about in the mid-'60s. They were changed to the American dream. They came looking for a better life, and they ended up working odd jobs here and there. And eventually they opened up a apparel company, Missy Moderate Career Polyester Blouse business, if you can get any more specific than that. Missy Moderate Career Polyester Blouse. It's like, it's kind of funny, you know, you try to say it super fast, but, and they had built an amazing business, and throughout the 80s and 90s had built something. They were truly living the American dream. And what ended up happening was that 90s come around, and you have this whole digital movement. You have dress down Fridays, you have dress down every day, so the whole work environment and apparel with it completely changed. And at this point, they were older. They started, you know, they kind of were taking it loose, really took their eye off the ball, and I'm sure a lot of you guys, as a lot of you guys know, the minute you take your eye off the ball in our business, and I'm sure it's in any other business, the ball will basically smack you in the face. So their business started, it actually went off the cliff, and this was my entree into my career, which was trying to help salvage and save a family business that was completely, first of all, the product had no basis in the market anymore. It was, you know, quickly declining. Infrastructure was completely shot. Parents and the leadership was emotionally, spiritually, physically completely beat down. So I walk into this situation as a 23-year-old kid. Maybe you're not a kid,
probably
but
not what you were even looking to do at the time, or?
You know, I wasn't sure.
Right.
You know? I came actually my last semester in college, and trying to figure out how to salvage the situation. And you know, it's interesting because I came in knowing nothing. I was so ignorant and unprepared that, you know, I think back to some of the things I used to say back then, and like, oh my God. I feel so bad for my parents, right? They're probably like, oh, that's not my son over there sitting in that corner.
Like no part with us.
But I think that at the same time that helped a lot, because it was such a huge undertaking, which I think if I knew too much, it would have been like, you know what, I can't do this, it's impossible, who am I to think I could get this done? And in this case, I think ignorance and youth and being naive was really a blessing. We to put in perspective, we were over $10 million in debt, no product, no infrastructure, no leadership. I mean, it was like the worst of the worst, coming into the mid-90s where the economic times were really bad.
Right.
So it was an interesting time. You know, at that point, I had, again, no idea, and just slowly started using common sense and what seemed to be best practices, and leaned on whatever resources we had, and slowly started to get the business turned around. By 97, I completely taken over the business, and by 99, really was able to, the business was profitable and moving in the right direction. So at that point, you know, I found a love for apparel and this industry. It's just Missy moderate career polyester blouses was
was
not
not your-
was not my thing. You know? So I had this message that I wanted to share with the world. I had this something that I wanted to speak to people
Right.
about, and just needed a bigger platform. So started venturing into the branded world, thinking that, you know what, I can make a ton of money in what I'm doing. It's doing extremely well, but this is just not enough for me. I need something. I have something more, and I want to give and share more. And so I need a platform that people will look at and respect more so than just the business.
Let's expand on the message, because that's one of the reasons why you and I, we connected over the necklace you were wearing, and that spurred that whole conversation
Right,
for the
right.
hour, right? So let's talk a little bit about that message, because that's a huge core behind the brand, and there's a lot of components that feed into various things that you do in the company as well.
You know, what I'd come to realize is, we're talking about the Innovation Summit, it's about technology and so forth, but I think the fundamentals of companies and businesses and brands are the same. The foundation of it is, to me at least, it's the same thing. And the way I've understood this and really come to realize is I think there's two differences. There's a great business and there are great brands.
Right.
A great business is, to me, again, my beliefs is that a great business, the foundation of it is great product. You have great product that feeds into a distribution model, and you have all the other nuances, but that's the foundation of a great business. And there's plenty of those, and there's a lot of really great businesses. And then you have a great brand, which, to me, the foundation of a great brand is you need a message, whether great or not. I mean, I don't think it really matters if it's a big message or a little message. You need to have a message, a lifestyle, a belief system. You need something that's really why you're doing all this stuff, a soul to it, more than let's make a ton of money or let's make, whatever, fashion. I think we're talking about fashion here. Let's fashion,
Lifestyle, yeah.
And because, people talk about a lifestyle brand, it's like, okay, great. And I think what, to me, at least from my perspective, what a lot of the misunderstandings here is that people say lifestyle and they immediately say, well, okay, fine. Because I hear this all the time. Denim, lifestyle, can you become a lifestyle company? You need to have shoes, fragrance, tops, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, that's not really a lifestyle. That's more categories. If you want more categories, great. But if you want to create a lifestyle brand, I believe you need to have a lifestyle that you represent. And again, I think that really the foundation of that is in the message. Like, who are you? What do you believe in? What are you trying to say? And so forth. And the product just becomes kind of that, the proof of the vehicle of communicating this message and whatever it is.
Right.
And you look at, I always reference to what I think, and I'm sure many other people think, is the greatest brand in this time is Apple. They have a very clear message on who they are, what they expect to be, and their product is just an extension and the delivery system of that. And I think if you look at the great brands, there aren't that many, right? There aren't that many great brands, but there's a lot of great businesses. And to me, I think what's most important is what you're looking to do. You're looking to have a great brand or a great business, and there's really nothing wrong with either.
Right.
It's just, if you want this, I think you have to start with, really, let's deal with the most important piece of it, which is what it is. And again, I think whether it's traditional media or new media, the concept, to me at least, is the same.
Right. How has the last few years, I mean, you guys are always, always doing a million things, just even was on the phone with your staff this week, and it's like, what's new? And they're like, where do we start? Like, where do you want us to start? I mean, you just have so much going on. I mean, how do you focus on different areas and what gets, special attention? And, the other thing I kind of want to circle back around to as well is your company culture and, the giving back part as well, because I think that's such a huge message that's what you stand for as well, that comes through in your company.
We're coming up on a 10-year anniversary, and the company has gone through a lot of different phases of development, and we've been from top to going down to coming up and almost going out, and we've been riding this roller coaster. And what's been exciting is the fact that we've been able to see so many different phases of not only our own business cycle, from startup to hitting that middle growth to almost coming out and relaunching, and to see that, but also doing it in a time that's I think it's a really fascinating time. I think it's one of the best times to start a business, to be living in, because there's so many things that you see today that we just didn't have. I mean, not even like 4 years ago, we didn't have. You know, we didn't have an iPhone, I think, 4 years ago. And today it is what it is. And blogging and all this social media,
and
Facebook.
How fast information gets out there. And
it's just an incredible time for companies. You know, historically, you can have a bunch of guys sitting in a room, you know, come up with some idea that may not even be who they are. And if they had the resources, they would be able to put money behind it, buy hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars of advertising, whether it's, you know, magazines or commercials, whatever it is, and poof, they have a company. And today, it's probably much more difficult to do. And at the same time, you can do what typically took 10, 20 years and millions of dollars. You could do it in 2 with almost no money.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking about this Instagram thing where, you know, less than 2 years, and now they sell for $1 billion. I mean, that's like, what the fuck, you know? Like, holy shit. What am I doing wrong here?
Yeah, I wish I was on that advisory board, right?
They make no money, right? We're just talking about they have no revenue. It's like, great, $1 billion. Sure, why not?
Exactly.
So I think, in my opinion, the culture is extremely important. It's something that, just us personally, we've spent a lot of time making sure that our culture is right because we believe so much in this. And early years, they used to tell me that culture and the brand message is not necessarily the same. And, you know, it didn't make sense then, and it really doesn't make sense today because the culture of the company is absolutely the brand. So, you know, our big message is if you strip everything away from it, is really about self. You know, it's about self. Become the best possible person you can become. And, you know, what I found is that whole process, it's really a evolution of me and where I was what I believe in the world personally, and then seeing how to try to execute this. And the way I usually operate I try to operate is what am I trying to do, and then work it backwards exactly into more of a specific. So
I want to jump back. So you had mentioned how you fell into the company and built it, and, you know, early on you were young and just made decisions just to make decisions, and looking back, you know, maybe they weren't always the best ones, or just because of the age and not knowing things. And being in an age and time of social media where, you know, it's still very much the Wild West. There's so much happening so fast, so quickly, you know, to just even be on board with it. And the reason I bring this question up is I was just in conversation with a tech company in San Francisco, and their advisory board said, we need more young people on here because you guys are too old and you make too safe decisions. We need to have more of that spontaneousness, you know. So how does that factor in to your company and making decisions? And, you know, do you feel that you're a little bit more safe now that you're 10 years out? Do you still have some of that cowboy, like, let's do this, let's go for it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the culture of our company is, I'm becoming 42 this year, right? 10 years into Hudson in particular. And I think more so than ever, our message to all of our staff is, if you are not making mistakes, you are not doing your job. Because our goals and dreams are massive, massive. We have huge goals. We have huge dreams. We're looking to change this world in a way that be a part of this change and creating a better place. And it's a massive goal. And I don't think you reach any kind of greatness by taking safe shots.
Yeah.
You know, and it's whether it's now, whether it's 5 years from now, whether you're a small company or a big company, I think you have to be willing to make mistakes.
Right.
And our message constantly is, if you're not making mistakes, if everything you did was right on and it was always good and everything worked, then you're probably not doing your job, because it means, how could you be right all the time? I mean, we're never right all the time. We're probably more wrong than we are right. And so what I tell people all the time is, make mistakes. I want you guys to roll up your sleeves, make as many mistakes as you possibly can. Just don't start making the same mistakes over and over and over
repeatedly,
again.
yes.
I mean, you make it once, great. You make it twice,
Maybe.
okay. Make it a third time, you know what? I think there's a problem here.
Yeah.
But make new mistakes all day long. I mean,
Right.
because I think that's the way we learn. I mean, and I don't think it's any different than anything else in life. It's the same thing. As a kid, from the very basics, as a kid, you fall a million times before you can actually stand even.
Right.
And I think the same concepts apply and should apply just throughout the rest of our lives. So, a friend of mine had told me that you're going through a midlife crisis. I'm like, yeah, I've been going through a midlife crisis since I was like maybe 15. So it's,
We're
I
like,
think,
that's just life
yeah,
now.
I think it's just the way it should be. I think what I'd hope to do in my own life, and the culture of and who I am, I hope is spilling into the company and hopefully into others. Is I just don't want to. I want to be able to look at life and say that when I come to die, whenever it is, like I could be dead right now, right? Heart attack, right? But when I go, that I could say.
The way you eat.
When I go, that I can say, you know what? I have no regrets, and I think that be able to do that, you just got to be balls out,
Yep.
hair on fire, and have no fear of what's going to happen.
So going back to it's your 10-year, where you're at now and what you're looking towards, what are some of these big goals, or how do you want to have that message really resonate?
It's a question that very often asked of me is, what's our next phases? Are we going to go into product expansion? Are we going to, what are you guys most focused in on? And, from my perspective, what I think is most important for us is, we're still really, our core business is in denim, and that's who we are, it's what we represent. To me, it's the perfect product that represents the message that we're trying to share with the community and the world. And so our top two focuses right now is how do we continuously become a better and stronger in what we do, in our core. And as we do that, how do we constantly communicate the brand message, who we are, and really share with the public why we're doing all of this. Why is all of this so important to us, and why is denim so important to us, and everything that we're doing. Why does, because from internally, everything makes sense. For example, our charity, it makes sense. Our message, it makes sense. Our product, it makes sense. The way we do our business, it makes sense. And we're realizing that maybe this isn't quite so transparent to the world. And this is really the most important part for us is when you buy Hudson jeans, you're not buying a pair of jeans that you spent $200 on and makes your ass looks good. That's part of it. That's
part of it. I mean, come on.
That is absolutely part of it.
Big part.
The bigger message behind this, we'd hope, is that you're buying into who we are and what we believe in. Together, we build this community of like-minded people that hopefully, our product just becomes more of a tool or armor or a baby blanket or something of that sort to help represent who you are. So, what we always say is our product should be a symbol and a reminder of who you are or who you aspire to be. And that, to me, is the most important piece of what we'd like to see people take away when they're associated with Hudson. So these two things are really the most important things in the near future. And yes, we have aspirations to go beyond and do other things, but we want to make sure that we do it in a way that makes sense to the consumer, makes sense to our community, makes sense to the customer, where it's not just for the sake of let's see how much more sales we can drive. It's this, we're moving into this because it makes sense into the bigger picture of what we're trying to accomplish.
Right. So let's talk about your brand ambassadors. I mean, I know Wyatt, Georgia May, and let's talk about Patrick. I mean, I think they completely embody the message you're trying to get across.
These two individuals were our biggest reason for picking them was for who they were. And this is one of the things that we're working on and keep pushing forward is showing people who they are, because it wasn't just their last name or who their father or mother are. It's, you meet these guys, they come from a really privileged home and they have everything they need or want even. Right. But at the same time, they're individuals who are very humble, who are respectful, who are self-motivated and looking to make their own place in this world, not just kind of resting on, well, you know what, I have everything and I don't have to do anything. And I think we probably all see a lot of that in our lives. And so what drew us most to these people are their will to create their own life and do it in a way that is positive. You know, they want to be their own person.
Right, right. Well, we're just got the sign for 10 minutes, so we're going to open it up to some questions. If any of you have questions, or we can keep having the conversation. Oh.
I think a really good thing to introduce on that.
So the question was talking about the charity aspect of Hudson Jeans and kind of that philosophy behind it.
You know, again, our message, the Hudson message here is the mission. Our mission statement is to lead and inspire better today for a better tomorrow, through the Hudson way of life, by challenging the status quo, by challenging ourselves to do and be the change. So this is our mission statement, and the core of this message is really on self. Mm-hmm. It started with, you know what, let's forget about all the problems that are going on in this world. There's a lot of bad stuff, absolutely, in Africa and in Southeast Asia, in our, you know, here, there. I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff, and people trying to help and do something is great. But from our perspective, what we found is what we believe is our best way to do this is you got to fix yourself first and foremost. So we all have enough problems in our lives. The rationale and the thought process here is if we can focus on becoming the best possible person we can, and if we can inspire our family, our company, our community, and if we collectively can inspire 6.8, I think it's now 7 billion people, all they have to do is focus in on becoming the best possible person, then in effect we have changed the world and done our part to make a better place. So that's really our philosophy, and so now with that in mind, everything else really stemmed off of that. And I'm taking this a bit of a roundabout way to process this. I've been working with the community for about 12 years now. And the community I chose was in Watts in South Central, and it's poverty communities in Los Angeles. And you know, initially people had asked, you know, it should be more global, make it bigger, we want to PR it and so forth. And I thought, you know what, I get it, but this is really for myself. You know, I don't want this to be too crazy. I need to be able to touch it, feel it, because again, following and consistent with my own personal messages, I want to be a part of this experience and not just handing a check and hopefully something good happens. It's handing a check, but what I found was what's more important is that the love and care and the touch, to be able to look at it in the eyes and say, you know, and let them see that people give a shit about them. Right. So that's how it came to this specific charity. And the most amazing thing had happened because initially, I had wanted to help others, and what I found is through this process, I would go down, be with these kids, do programs and do this, and I started feeling almost guilty because I'm thinking, wow, you know what, I'm actually getting more out of this than I think I'm giving. Like, I walk away from this feeling better about myself, feeling better about what I've done, feeling about hopefully this kid had something different in their lives, and I started feeling guilty about this whole thing. And then I started realizing, wow, this is an amazing thing that's going on because my intent was to help and I'm getting more out of this. I hope they're getting something out of this. And then you see what happens is the interaction between me and child or individual turns into the parents, the teachers, and then the community around it starts getting inspired and they're like, well, you know, people do care. And then this whole thing turns into a much bigger ball of energy, if you will, than just an initial point. So, and it ended up becoming this magical experience where I'm like, wow, this is super cool how this one little thing has turned into something bigger. And you know, it's really, again, it just falls into the perspective and what we believe in at Hudson, which is you just start small, and this small piece turns into bigger, and next thing you know, you have this momentum, and hopefully, if we can continuously create a community of people, like-minded people, and the belief is there's a lot of really good people in this world, just we need to figure out ways to come together, to work together, and really move our society and humanity in a different way, on a different path, because I think, and I don't think anybody's going to argue with me. Our path right now is really scary. Yeah, right? Between what's going on here with our government, with our own country, and then what you see what's going on outside. It is a really scary path. And this is one of the things I think is great about this summit here, which is it's bringing people together to try to start thinking in the same direction, at least, to try to figure what's a better
Exactly.
path than what we got going on right now. And we have so many tools available to us today that it's an amazing, exciting time. So this is how a long way, roundabout way for me to answer how this has started for us and why this means so much to us. So, what we're trying to do with our charity, the focus here is just hopefully inspire others that you can either be a part of this. If not, then that's okay too, but do something. Because there's tons of stuff in your own home, in your own community, in your own schools that you can do that make massive, massive impact.
Right, and what I love, being at your company and seeing your employees and, through the years and whatnot is that, it's something that you believe in, and that's why we initially bonded. Our first initial conversation was about this topic, but, there's such a passion that you have for it, but it trickles down, and it's not, like you said, you're not doing it to get that next PR push. Like, that's not the reason, and all of your employees embody that too. That it's very evident when you are at your office and you see that, and I think that's such a great to have a leader that embodies that and then can surround himself with those people as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have a microphone coming down for you.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing your experience with us, and I myself am trying to build my own brand. I design and I have my own children's book collection, and I'm based in Los Angeles, and I'm almost coming up to 9 years, and nobody knows about me yet. But can you just talk about, in more specific terms, what your advice would be for building a brand? Because I understand your philosophies behind it, but how did you really start, like 10 years ago? Practically speaking, step by step, if you could.
We have just a few minutes, so we can, because I know this could be a 20-minute answer, so we can always do, after, but yeah.
Just on a quick note, again, I think the most important thing is to build a brand, and the way I define a brand is a true lifestyle. And so I think the most important thing is to figure out, what does a brand represent? What does it mean? Why is the brand here? What's the purpose of it? And then from there, you start figuring out how you're going to do this and what you're going to do. You do children's wear, and you have that piece of it. So, everything in between, this is where there's a much longer discussion about the logistics and finance. There's so many pieces of it, but again, from my perspective, the most important thing is you start figuring out this piece of it first and foremost. And to me, what's helped me at least is once I understood what I wanted to achieve, then everything else just helped lead into that. Finding purpose in life, I think it's a extremely important thing because then it becomes the target, and it helps determine everything you do. Right now, is this helping go into that? Is it plus, minus, or neutral to get to my target? And you have a basis to start measuring. And if you don't, then it's kind of like if you have no purpose, then anything could be right? And it doesn't matter what you do, you have no point. So I think, again, if you're looking to create a brand, my personal opinion is you got to start with what does it mean, what is the point, why are you doing this, what's the purpose of it, and then start figuring out forward how you plan to get this thing communicated. It's a very short answer. It's a big question.
Are you going to be around?
I will be, yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Actually, we'll take one more and then.
Oh, I'm just going to ask a question about how do you, with so many new social tools, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, et cetera, how do you weigh your brand's adoption of these tools? And how do you have strategy sessions when you're deciding if you're going to have an Instagram and what you're going to do with it, those types of things, or is it just let's just do it and see what it goes?
It's a little bit of both. How I would judge ourselves is I would say, below par in this. And I think it's really tough, or it's depending on what perspective you take. There's the whole digital space, obviously they're pioneering this whole space. If you take it into our specific industry and even category, we may be, par, maybe a little bit better. But, when I look at our company, I want to be on this level. I don't want to be the best in a class of shit. right? I want to be the best in the best. So it's something that we constantly look at, we analyze, and there is, and we're a small company, so it's not, we can't go after everything. So we try to make sure that we focus in on what we think are the most first in line with what we're trying to do and will help us get the most efficiency in communicating what we're trying to do. But having said that, we are also guilty of, let's try a lot of different stuff as well. So I think there's a combination of looking at all the above is I think you do need an absolute plan and have, again, some kind of roadmap, and then within that you kind of have to weave and in and out of it.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, for being
Thank you.
here and sharing with us your journey to 10 years, and excited to see what the next 10 years bring, because I know it's going to be a lot of fun craziness. So
Should be fun.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.